for listening to the Drinks.com podcast, the business of online alcohol. I'm your host, Brandon Amoroso, and today I'm talking with Justin Noland, who's the VP of Digital Experience at Treasury Americas. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So before we jump into some of the topics we want to cover today, can you give everybody just a quick background on yourself and how you ended up here?
Yeah, so I'm Justin Noland. I'm Vice President Digital Experience for Treasury Americas, part of Treasury Wine Estates, but kind of focus in on the U.S. and the different brands that are kind of heavily focused here in the Americas. I've been in the wine industry for about 7 years, but been with Treasury for the last 3.5 or so. I started with Treasury primarily because it's a organization that's known to be innovative, that's known to be bold and take risks, especially on the digital front. You think about it being, the first company to put augmented reality on wine labels. It's a company that puts, Snoop Dogg on a wine label. And it's such a phenomenal organization. And you look at the broadness of the portfolio, everything from, the bottles of 19 Crimes that you can find in virtually, every grocery store in the country to really, really high-end, beautiful Cabernets across a lot of our Napa brands. So exciting organization to be with, but truly they have an innovative spirit and a mindset to try new things and go after what's next. And that's what brought me there, and I've kind of enjoyed every bit of it. Over the last several months, I've jumped into the global digital team. So now we're really thinking about how we take these digital experiences and this technology and think about it across the globe, and working with some really, really talented people out of our Australian team and out of other places kind of all over the planet, and it's a lot of fun.
2 questions for you off of that. One, you mentioned wine industry 7 years. So what were you doing before this, and how did you end up in the wine industry? And then the follow-on question to that would be, Treasury is obviously a great example of a alcohol business that is digitally enabled, but why do you think so many companies are not within this vertical?
A little background history, and I'll give you the short story. Started as an agency guy, started in brand marketing, moved from the agency into marketing in the medical industry, and actually spent a lot of time in medical, everything from kind of insurance to products to SaaS software within medical. Ended up coming back to California after a stint living in Texas at a medical nonprofit organization that needed to be it was a digital transformation from in that world. And if anybody that's worked in the medical industry knows, digital and transformation is very touchy when it comes to medical information and certainly our personally identifiable information. There's a lot of different things that go on with that. Anyways, I spent 3 years with a medical nonprofit organization that was a membership organization where I had millions of members all over the world, where the number one reason for attrition was death. And if you think about that can be really draining on a human being. To how do we continue to get more people into an organization, and you see pros and cons, and you sort of see what happens throughout their lives. And I have a ton of respect for anybody that works in medical nonprofits and the work that they do to help people, but every day it was draining on me. I'd come home and wouldn't have the energy to play with my kids in the way that I wanted to. But I lived in Northern California, and I really enjoy wine, and I enjoy how people interact with wine. Wine is typically part of an experience. It's part of having a great conversation with a friend. It's part of a celebration. It's part of an amazing meal. And all of those connections, all of those pieces together made it, seem like this is an industry that I really would like to be in. While at the same time, there's actually a lot of components to it that are relatively the same. It was a need for digital transformation, a need to interact with your consumers interact with the people that you're trying to reach online in different ways. So spending time in Northern California talking to winery executives, it seemed like there was a lot of the same challenges, and digital transformation is something I've been successful at over my life, and something I thought I could bring to the wine world. And that's what I did. That's kind of where I came from. Got the opportunity to join Wente Family Estates. The Wente family, amazing people, gave me kind of my first opportunity in wine, and are still killing it with really rethinking how they're interacting with consumers. You look at the average age of a consumer at Wente, and it's dropped significantly over the years as they're getting better and better at interacting with younger audiences and creating stories and building stories that are authentic to them, but are actually, that are very impactful to younger audiences as well. So it's kind of been a bit of a journey in wine as well, understanding what people, what consumers are interested in, what they actually care about, and how we can tell those stories in a digital way, while also understanding, to your point, what the roadblocks have been for a lot of wine companies, and kind of what has kept them from really enabling themselves to be a digital first organization. And to go into that, I think you kind of have to have this realization that the wine industry is, first and foremost an agricultural business. It's about the land, it's about the growing of the grapes, it's about producing the product. And most of the executives, most of the decision makers within that come from that side of the business. And the creation of truly exceptional wine has been a passion, for an awful lot of people. And I think a lot of them have missed that transformation into this new digital world where you can interact with people in new ways across screens. You think about the experiences that the wine industry produces, and truly exceptional hospitality experiences. You bring people out to a winery, and the storytelling is impeccable, the service is impeccable, the wine is phenomenal. It's how do you translate that experience to the people that will never actually be able to make it to those, to those properties. And that's really, I think, where the digital transformation starts, and where we can be really impactful.
Yeah, when I was out in Napa last summer, the experience that I was getting in person could not have been, more different than the experience I was getting online for a vast majority of the properties that I was at. But I think that also gives the wineries so much, opportunity and potential in a way that a brand that is just D2C e-com doesn't have, because they don't have that history, they don't have the storytelling, at their disposal. And so it seems like a really untapped opportunity for a lot of these wineries, whether people are never making it to the actual tasting room, or if they are making it, but just that one time, and then being able to curate and nurture that relationship over the years following in a way that I don't think is being done, very, very succinctly right now.
Definitely. And I do think we've come a long way in the last few years. I mean, as you know, the world today requires marketers across any industry, especially the wine industry, but certainly any industry, to have some level of digital experience, right? Before the pandemic, though, I think most wine marketers didn't really consider themselves to be digital marketers. They thought of themselves purely as sort of brand storytellers, and how do we create the image? How do we weave the things so that our sales team and our distributors all have the same stories and can tell them, across retail. It's different now. It's the ability to connect directly with that consumer in a truly meaningful way is starting to have marketers kind of grasp a hold on the fact that they do kind of need to be a digital marketer. They do need to start learning stuff like basic code to some extent. They need to understand, what does it take to build that experience online? What does it take to manipulate what we're producing in the real world and make it valuable and interesting so that it's continuing to add value in an online way so that it's not just in the real world. It's definitely making a huge shift in the last few years. Some organizations have done it better than others, but I think everybody is a little bit at least on that path.
How has AI helped accelerate that, you know, more generally speaking within the industry, but also within, Treasury, either from a more macro perspective or, these are some specific tools that we've started to use that have, really changed the experience for us in a certain way.
Well, I mean, Treasury prioritizes that kind of culture of innovation, right? So we think about innovation maybe a little bit differently than a lot of other organizations do. That gives our teams leeway to try new things and explore a little bit. Some of the kind of key areas where we've sort of successfully been able to integrate AI has been, I mean, the sort of the obvious is e-commerce and marketing. We spend a lot of time with generative AI and helping generate bandwidth for us, right? So we don't necessarily think about AI as the tool to do all of the things, but we certainly think about AI as the tool to create bandwidth so that our teams can hone in on the stuff that they're really passionate about. You need to write copy that is SEO friendly, that isn't necessarily meant for audiences, but is meant to, enhance the search engine optimization of a website. That's something that's really great for AI to do because it has those skill sets and it's functional. And if you can move that sort of tedious task off and allow AI to do it, you can focus a little bit more in on what is that next level storytelling and the marketing automation emails that you're going to be sending out? What's that next level, of added value that you can provide, whether it's going to be, recipes that your consumers want to use for the holidays or, just other kind of ways to drive home brand and the brand stories. But, we're looking at AI in all sorts of ways, right? We're looking at, how does AI improve worker safety? How does AI improve our ability to upskill workers and people across our teams, ensuring that they have learning accessible to them and making sure that we're using automation and using, the tool sets to really improve the safety of our teams. How can we use AI to enhance sustainability across the organization? In 2023, we installed over 150 telemetry units into our vineyards to monitor water use and capacity of our reservoirs. That's just helping us to determine more precisely, the irrigation of the land, and using AI to really take in all of that data and provide insights so that our teams can just better produce. Like, those are the kinds of stories from a sustainability perspective that goes beyond just the throwing, a sustainability label on a bottle and says, this is how we're doing it in the real world. So yeah. AI can bring a lot of value into the wine industry. It can bring it certainly, from the generative AI, from a marketing and development and an e-commerce perspective. But we're seeing positive impacts across the entirety of the business.
Yeah, I think, pigeonholing it into just being able to disrupt a particular, field is selling it short. To your point, there's applications both digitally, but, even in cases of being more sustainable when it comes to production and things like that. And then, you can weave that into your story and have a better way to connect with consumers as well about that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I mean, from like a marketing perspective, generative AI is an amazing tool, right? We enable our marketers with some AI tools that can take one or two pieces of content that are long format, large version content. Maybe it's a 5-10 minute long video, and help it break it down into 100 different pieces of content, whether that's, copy or, Instagram posts or, reels for social media. Using AI in that way, just again, it takes that investment that we made in telling a story, and it allows us to expand the value that we're getting out of it across the board. It's still that investment, it's still that story that we're telling, but it's allowing AI to completely ensure that we're getting maximized value out of it. And it's just, again, these are the kind of game changers that are impactful in the digital world.
You mentioned being with Wenti that they're able to tap into a younger audience. Um, I assume that's a focus for you all as well at Treasury, and it's something that I've been hearing from more and more wineries that their consumers are not getting any younger, and they're having trouble tapping into folks my age. Even once you start to get younger, you're looking at a bunch of other products that are alternatives as well, even beyond low alc or no alc. There's CBD drinks, there's even cannabis drinks in a lot of states now. A lot of RTDs, brands that are a little bit more lifestyle centric, and then necessarily your traditional like old school Napa cab. Um, so what are some of the things that you've been doing to tap into that younger generation? Do you think, this concern is overblown? Do you think it's, a real thing that in 50 years, all the wine drinkers are going to be 80, 90 years old and sort of dying out? Or do you think that it's just sort of a cyclical trend that the younger generation right now is not, as into wine as the ones before it?
Yeah, I tend to lean on that this is just a cyclical trend in the overall, right? Just from a standpoint that wine has been around for a very, very, very long time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, you don't have to adapt, right? You still have to innovate. You still have to be thoughtful about it. And I think that thoughtfulness is an area that the wine industry can continue to improve. Getting obsessed with your customers, understanding where they are and what they care about, and also knowing that customers aren't all the same. One of the things that luxury wineries, especially our big, beautiful Napa Valley wineries that have these amazing Cabernets and other amazing wines are really great at is talking about that story of place, right? They're talking about the terroir and talking about the winemaking process and the people behind it. And that is truly, truly compelling information to a certain type of audience, right? To certain people. That's beautiful. It's what they want to hear. They want to know more and more and more about the wine. They want to get into the nitty gritty on the process and the fermentation and the barrels and all of this kind of stuff. And it's not to say that that's not important. That really is to a certain audience. To other audiences, though, it's not as important. Wine is, and they want great wine, but the wine is sort of secondary to the occasion that they're having it in, right? They're enjoying an evening with friends, and they want to make sure that they're bringing a good bottle of wine that they can enjoy. But that's the point of their evening, is to go have fun with their friends and have a good conversation with their friends. So figuring out that balance of how much story do you tell about us? How much is about the wine versus how are we working to insert ourselves into the lives of our customers? How are we giving them occasions and making sure that we know that they're the star, right? They're the star of their own life, and we just want to be that secondary character with them. And providing a variety of brands, a variety of styles, a variety, even quite frankly, of price points to say, look, we're going to give you the quality we know you want. We know you want good wine. But we also know that not everybody is essentially not everybody is planning a trip to Napa every summer to go tasting and to learn more and more about the wines that they're having. I give an example. We just launched a really beautiful brand that the team has done an amazing job with, called Drop of Sunshine. It's a beautiful partnership with another organization that is really focused in on a message and really focused in on the kind of consumer that they want to talk to, and ensure that they're having the right stories and the right thoughtfulness and being really authentic to that kind of customer. And I don't even need to get into what the customer is or what the stories are, but it's like the level of thoughtfulness around the brand and the authentic stories and the people that you want to talk to. That's really that's kind of the core area that I think wine needs to get better at.
You mentioned multiple price points and brands. How much are you doing around, sort of cross promoting or, graduating your customers into higher tiers of the treasury portfolio? And then are you able to sort of look at, from an analytics standpoint, oh, Brandon is a customer of, six of these 40 brands, and, this is what his, buying propensity looks like, and have that inform, how you then like go about communicating with me and targeting me in the future.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an area that even we can continue to get better at, right? Is truly having that deep understanding of our customers, both from a direct standpoint, but then, even broader when it comes to our portfolio. But having a portfolio like that is really valuable. Look at a brand like 19 Crimes. 19 Crimes is an exceptional brand at introducing people to the wine category. People, again, you kind of get both ends of the spectrum a little bit, right? Some people, when they think about Snoop Dogg on a bottle of wine, it's like, oh, that's, like what's going on there? Snoop Dogg has introduced more people to wine than probably anybody else. I mean, it's really his impact on getting somebody to try wine for the first time is quite remarkable. And the team at 19 Crimes has done a really, really great job at making it interesting and making it fun, and thinking about wine in the category a little bit differently, which is continuing to introduce more and more people to wine. And if a consumer stays a 19 Crimes customer for the rest of their life, it's awesome. Great. We love that. But as most consumers go, if they get into a category and then they find that they like it, they tend to graduate and look and explore other options, right? And sometimes that goes into that whole idea of premiumization, where they will spend more and try new things in bigger bottles, or not bigger, but kind of bolder, kind of Cabernets, or just really finding out what they love. And to some extent, we'll certainly see that, as they get introduced to others, maybe not. I think it's less about graduating people into more expensive products, and I think it's more about understanding the people and the kinds of products that they like and the kinds of products that they want to enjoy. Is this somebody that is really enjoying, bottles at a certain price point, but during the holidays is certainly willing to spend more to ensure that, the bottle that they're getting is going to impress the crowd at the holiday gathering that they're going to. And just making sure that consumer has the confidence, has the knowledge necessary, the storytelling, the understanding of the brands to have that confidence to make that purchase. And that goes a long way.
I didn't even think about it in that way, honestly. That he probably has introduced, more people to wine than anybody else. I mean, that in and of itself is a great example of, maybe influencer marketing is the wrong term, but tapping through somebody's existing influence and, the channels that they have available to them to, bring up a new category. And I think he's done that in other aspects as well beyond just wine. I mean, he really has gotten really great at, putting his name behind something and having it gain significant traction in whatever category it may be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think about influencer marketing and they immediately go to a particular person on Instagram or something like that. And it's such a kind of like low level thought process around that, when the reality is influencer marketing can be virtually anybody, right? I mean, the number one way people find out about a new wine brand is through friends and family, period. Mm-hmm. So anybody could be an influencer. We just, it's helpful to find people that have an audience that's larger, right? And says, look, does that audience appreciate and respect and think about the things that person is saying and are willing to take a chance on it? Does it give them a little bit more confidence, right? I mean, think about it, it's audience borrowing to some extent. And you just want to make sure that it still has to be authentic. It still has to be meaningful, in some ways. And making sure that, again, this kind of goes back to that consumer obsession. If you know enough about your consumers and you care about them being the stars of their own story and kind of understand that your brand is sort of secondary to that, but it's like, how can you fit along with that story? All the things like influencer marketing and all the digital all of it seems to find a much easier role in telling stories and sort of being a part of that.
How are you tapping into that component you mentioned, where most people learn about, wine or new products from friends and family? Are there any sort of digital programs that you have enabled for customers in more of like a micro influencer way?
Yeah, so our brand teams definitely have different influencer programs throughout the year, and they do different activations. One of the things that we like to do as much as possible is be in as many places as we can be, right? So thinking about things like AI, where it allows us to take long form content or the beautiful brand story, the beautiful book of recipes that we put together that matches that brand and really kind of speaks to the brand, and be able to break it apart and put it in, essentially say, this is the format I need for Instagram, this is the format I need for Facebook, but also this is the format I need for Reddit, this is the format that I need for, name the different platform, and then try and get the content out there. From a standpoint of the more eyeballs that it gets in the right capacities and the right platforms with the right people, the likelihood is that stuff's going to be shared. But you also kind of, it's more of an understanding of the consumer themselves, right? So looking at them and at the data and saying, what are the occasions that what are the occasions that they are drinking wine, and how can we give them something of value that they're willing to share, because now it becomes they're sharing us as part of that, right? So if it's Thanksgiving coming up, and you want to say, here's the 10 wines that pair with Thanksgiving or whatever, like that's something of value that then they can share it across to friends and family, and it kind of gives that second life. But it's more, I think, even from a standpoint of how do we create occasions that weren't necessarily wine ones, but could be if you wanted to have some fun with it. And again, go back to 19 Crimes, and last year they launched 2 bottles for Halloween that they had Dracula and Frankenstein, and they had augmented reality kind of cool experiences that sort of Halloween is, I don't think most people think of Halloween as a typical wine occasion, but they thought, look, it's people, they're getting together, they're having fun, why wouldn't that be a wine occasion? How can we enable them to do that? And then we're also going to do it in a really cool way that they're going to want to share. And that level of engagement is the kind of marketing that you really need to be able to deliver in the digital world.
Yeah, the engagement component and getting people to share is really powerful, and it's also one of the reasons why I think in-person events are such a powerful moment. Even if you're a brand that doesn't have a physical presence, having pop-ups, things like that, because not only are you getting your customers together, but they're bringing people to the event. Everybody's posting about it on Instagram, etc. There's a lot of this marketing that's sort of earned for free beyond just what you're actually delivering in that particular moment.
Yeah, one of the a brand that Treasury recently brought into its portfolio is Dow, out of Southern California, and to be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about Dow as they went through the acquisition process and these kind of things. But what I did know was I saw a lot of stuff on Instagram about some events that they put together at their property, not just at up at Dow Mountain, but like, to your point, pop-up events and various other things that they just looked like they were having an amazing time. And that got shared and shared. I didn't see it necessarily from the actual like Dow social. I saw it from the socials of friends and other people that I knew in Southern California. And that's where, it's one of the things that hit me. I was like, man, this brand is special, because it's literally, they're putting out there that this brand is about fun. It's about all sorts of different things, but it's all positive. And so when Treasury announced that we were acquiring Dow, I was like, man, this is the kind of magic dust that you can start sprinkling on other brands, and you can really learn from them and how they're bringing that story and those experiences out beyond the wineries and into other communities.
So I was going to move to the fun questions, but your comment about acquisition gives me one more before we get to the fun ones. What's it like integrating a brand, after or during and then after that acquisition process? Because you obviously have your digital strategy across the board at Treasury. How do you go about integrating a new company? Especially, I mean, Dow is pretty sizable, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. And this is one of the things that, my first year at Treasury, Treasury acquired Frank Family Vineyards. So I learned a lot about sort of how Treasury thinks about it. And the first thing I think to note is that when Treasury is acquiring a brand, that brand is special. They're doing something amazing, right? And the last thing you want to do is harm whatever that specialness is, that they're doing. So it's really a time process, to integrate. Even in like basic level systems, because what you don't want to do is harm that specialness and take away from what those people were already doing and the magic that they already have. I think there's a lot of it is just conversations, talking to them, saying, what are you doing? How is this working? Let's get involved and see if is there more resources we can provide you so that you can amplify that magic that you already have. And quite frankly, try and stay out of the way to some extent, right? There's definitely opportunities to optimize things or start looking at pieces of technology or again, I'm not part of like our sales world, but like I'm sure that there's things that they do to optimize the who's selling what and what distributors and all this kind of stuff. And our team's phenomenal at that. They over communicate and they really make sure that everybody is understanding of kind of where we're going and what we're doing. But I think the thing that I appreciate with Treasury is that they're really, really thoughtful. And the thoughtfulness stems from, if they're acquiring a brand, it's because that brand is doing something special. And the last thing we want to do as a large organization is get in the way of that specialness. And I think we've done a really good job of not just staying out of the way of that, but learning from it and harnessing it and bringing some of those pieces to actually improve the work that we're doing across other brands as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's critical, not trying to push too much onto the company coming in, especially early on, because you're going to end up spending more time focused on, how do we make things perfect from an integration standpoint than, how do we continue to keep the business growing and, doing all the amazing things that we're already doing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and got really talented people, right? Like that's the other side is you don't want to jump in and be like, oh, like here's the Treasury way of doing it. And like, no, like you guys have talented people. You let us know how we can support you, how we can do other things, and let's figure this all out together. And have trust and faith in the organizations that are being brought in, to the broader group. But again, it's really about letting that magic continue to shine.
So now on to the fun questions. First, what is your favorite wine memory?
Ooh, favorite wine memory. This is okay. So this is a little bit of a fun one. My mother-in-law. This was like the very first Christmas. So this is when we were just dating. I wanted to get a bottle of wine to impress her because I know that she liked wine. So I went out and I actually bought. This is long before I was at Treasury. I mean, many years. I bought a bottle of BV's George de la Tour, which is Beaulieu Vineyard's iconic wine. I mean, it's truly an impressive Cabernet from Rutherford in the Napa Valley. It's more expensive than I should have spent at the time, again, at the time, just because I didn't have much money. I was super young. Brought it and I was so proud because I literally, this is probably the nicest bottle of wine I've ever bought in my life. And she accepted it super, super graciously. And then I found out maybe 20 minutes later that she only likes white wine, that she's not a big red wine fan. So I probably should have been more thoughtful about the kind of wine. At the same time, we did open that wine and really enjoyed it. And that was the first real great Cabernet I'd ever had in my life, and it made me rethink what wine really was, right? I was young at the time, probably hadn't had any good wine in my life at that point, and then I tasted this thing, and I was like, okay, I get it more. I've had lots of wine experiences since then, certainly since joining, the wine industry. Having a couple of bottles of wine with friends in Portugal last fall was pretty amazing. Doing a lot of different things, but that's one that'll stick out in my head for the rest of my life.
Oh, it's a really cool story, especially getting to share it with, somebody who is now still obviously a big component of your life. So that's cool. And last, if you could share a bottle with anyone, who would it be, and what would you be drinking? And it doesn't have to be wine either.
Yeah, well, so most people know I'm a big whiskey and bourbon guy. So just, get an opportunity to sneak away with quite frankly, with any friends or anybody else. My kind of like longtime partner in crime, who heads up digital innovation globally at Treasury, but we were at Wenti together, and we kind of been on this wine journey together as Shem Swerkis. Absolutely brilliant person. I always kind of joke that he's the mind behind a lot of the stuff that I able to get done in my wine career, because quite frankly, if neither of us know how to do it or know what technology to use or how to make something work, he'll probably figure it out. But one of the great things is just over the many years is, whenever we travel somewhere, go somewhere, or do something, it's, we bring back a bottle of whiskey from wherever, some small batch thing that some mom and pop was putting together. Just over the summer was in Alaska and brought back a small batch bottle of whiskey from Juneau, and gave that to him. But yeah, I think just sharing a glass of bourbon, glass of whiskey with my buddy was probably a winner for me.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, sharing all of your insights, and also your your fun facts and stories. I really appreciate it. But before we hop, can you let everybody know where they could find Treasury online?
Yeah, Treasury Online is definitely check out the wineshop.com. It has a lot of our different wines across the portfolios. Each of the different brands has their own websites. I mean, look at BV and Stag's Leap. We have so many different brands. There's something for everybody. But yeah, check out Treasury Wine Estates. The wines are absolutely incredible. The organization 100% cares and puts its money where its mouth is on things like sustainability and other things that so many of us care about. It's a great organization to work for, and super proud to be able to represent them here.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming on. For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso, and you can find us at drinks.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.